Hey, it is Zaniyyah Blue, and I'm here with the Base Creatives podcast. This is going to be exciting because this is actually something I have wanted to do for a while now. I haven't really known how I wanted to bring in some fun lessons or how to use my experience in a way that allows me to kind of tell a story and be honest. Just because I am actually a marketer just by trade. I have had the privilege of just working with different small businesses for some time. And I don't necessarily want to be the person who just tells you the secret magic key, just because I feel like my philosophy of marketing, my philosophy of business, especially for intimate small businesses, is to do something that's a little custom, a little creative in the way that you serve your audience. And so there isn't always going to be a one size fits all joint that everybody could just use or participate in. And I finally found out how I wanted to share some of the lessons that I've had the privilege of learning. And I think that my heart as it pertains to marketing and marketing for your business is going to be kind of seen as you see the way that I kind of just put this together. So if you are listening to this audio, there is a complimentary or a parallel presentation format on YouTube also. And if you're watching on YouTube and you're like, this is dope, but I got to get in the car, you can pull it up anywhere podcasts are stream. So Apple, Google Podcasts. I think I'm also on Stitcher, Anchor, and all the things that you could, check it out. Even Spotify if you wanted to check it out there too. So that's the fun. And today we're going to be talking about sparking creativity in content creation. And I'm excited about this mostly because I think one of the biggest challenges that I had to overcome in creating content on a consistent basis was how in the world am I supposed to kind of execute creatively on a regular basis. And once I started to kind of figure out what would help me keep with that pacing, I was like, this is the key. And so in working with other small businesses and, serving them as a contractor and client relationship, trying to help them see they have enough ideas about how to approach their audience and really kind of seeing them kind of have a lot of joy and some peace about the way that we talk about it and kind of just rethink the way that we engage with content. I feel like content is going to be fun for you in a way that it possibly never has been before. And I think it's going to be cool. So I'm going to start by welcoming you into this place. It's a new place. It's a new space. So I actually have done a whole bunch of pilots so many different times in so many different ways. I was like, I'm going to do this with the podcast. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. But I kind of always was like, yo, if I can't figure out how to get some also video aspect to it to show up well, I was like, I don't really know if I want to do it because I'm the person who will listen to a podcast, but I'm also the kind of person who would sit on YouTube and actually listen or actually watch and actually take notes. And I'm based because I do a lot of teaching in different environments. And so I normally perform best when I'm not looking at my notebook, but when I'm looking at my screen and not getting distracted by a notebook, not getting distracted by scribbles, not trying to figure out what does that word say? It's stressful. For me, it's stressful. So I was like, you know what, I have to do this in a way that makes it fun for me. And to do it in a way that allows me to kind of perform at a consistent level, so that's where we are here. And so just to welcome you into my digital space, I'm Zaniyyah again, and I have worked as a marketer for small businesses since 2016. So I started because my family started a business, and I did the marketing and kind of the sales development, growing in that space by falling and failing and started again and falling and failing and started again. And what's so funny about it was everybody was so excited about the glamorous parts of our business. And I'm over here the inventory is beautiful. How are we going to get it off of the shelves? And at the time, I want to say at the time, I was probably like maybe like a sophomore, junior in college. And it was so interesting because we had staff going on to trade shows. We had, well, not staff, like just members of the family who were members of the business who were going on to trade shows and things like that. Hold on, my computer is being rebellious. Okay, awesome. Okay, so going to trade shows, doing all of this work, spending tens of thousands on inventory, bringing that inventory back. This was before we had known about things like drop shipping, even though drop shipping, I'm not sure if it was new, but it was definitely new to us around that time. So we were kind of just like growing and learning and making mistakes. And so I decided that I was going to prioritize the marketing and the selling because it was the most interesting thing to me. And I just felt like we should all be doing things that we genuinely care about. So the work isn't something someone has to push you or force you to do. And so I took what I learned in that environment and started a few ventures and projects for myself. Started a subscription box company called Easy Living Box. And I think I had 2 rounds of a subscription box company. And I was like, a subscription box company is not for one soul. And it's definitely not for a person who is a college grad, like literally still on that college financial diet. And so I was just like, you know what, I'm going to have to shelf this. And I was content for a while, having had the experience that I had in marketing and selling in my family business and kind of just being really investigative in that space. And then having a subscription box company where I had successfully run 2 rounds, but realized that, man, like that wiped me out in so many different ways. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm cool. Maybe my hobby is like learning about this stuff and, gathering this information. And so for years, I was just like, this is really cool. I'm having fun. Just like learning this information and studying this industry, not necessarily just in case. It was literally like, this is so interesting. And if I ever need to use it, I'll use it. And then I went on to kind of just like build other businesses. But in that, I think that one of the things I was the most excited about was the marketing and the selling. And I say marketing and the selling because I always kind of felt like people treated them like they were 2 different things. And technically they are in a way, but they're very, very, very closely connected. And so in my experience, and then I started to like work corporately in marketing as well, because I was like, I want full hands-on. I want to be fully immersed in the environment. And so I worked at Scholastic for a little bit, and I had the privilege of working on like large-scale campaigns. So campaigns for like, what were some of the brands, like American Girl or like NASCAR, like Coca-Cola, or just really interesting different campaigns, kind of like looking at the inner workings of how bigger brands are using their marketing dollars and their sales dollars and how they're going about building these relationships with their consumers so that they buy. And so I'm just like, okay, this is interesting. This is it. And so I think that in working on my own brand, I started to kind of just like attract or start to kind of just get really well acquainted with people who are working in their business, but they're like, yo, the marketing thing is trash for me. Like, I don't love it. There's so much other work to do. Selling is its own work. And so how do I market in a way that kind of just shows my business up well? And so that's kind of how I found myself giving out more kind of like insight or information one-on-one than I actually wanted to. And so I was feeling like it was starting to take up a little bit more of my time, and I liked my business and my industry that I'm in. So I'm like, okay, so what can I do? So I started to kind of create a little bit more of a system for kind of just like giving a little bit of feedback, providing a little bit more advice, and being able to help people one-on-one, when they're asking. And so I really, really fell in love with it. But my whole thing was I'm still really, really, really connected to my business. I'm really still connected to my industry. But I was like, I'm really excited to be building out another brand where I get to also serve other purpose businesses and kind of be of support to other purposed entrepreneurs, simply because if no one says these things to us, if no one gives us that encouragement, there are a lot of people who are going to think that just because they weren't developed, that they weren't built for this. But in reality, if you do not exercise a muscle to the point of developing strength in it, you're always going to be weak. But you can't take the lack of use of that muscle as like your call or your destiny to be weak. No, it has atrophied from a failure to be used, a failure to be exercised. And the thing about exercise is that it's oftentimes pretty uncomfortable. It oftentimes is going to stretch you in ways you weren't planning on being stretched. And if you're not careful, you'll think that process is actually hurting you when it's just that uncomfortable to someone who's new to it. So I was like, yo, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, what I know, I'm gonna take what I'm interested in, and I'm just gonna do what I need to do to serve whoever the people are that I'm called to, no matter what their industry is. And so now we're here. And I'm excited for this podcast to just be an environment where I'm sharing the resources and the information to help more brands kind of like push past those initial steps and kind of just start showing up well and showing up consistently. So at the end of the day, this is just help. And I think that it's okay to kind of like consider it that. And so today's conversation is about bringing the spark to the creativity in your content creation process. But first, I want to start with why I think creativity in content matters so much. I think that because the world is kind of like very much, it's a lot of content. It's everywhere. Even where we might not realize or we might not consider it content, it's content. If you walk into Walgreens and you see someone who looks like you, that's content. Like if you look in the magazine, if you look in a newspaper, the word or the language for it might be a little bit more modern, but more things than not are actually content. And so it's really easy to look at someone doing something, assume it's working or assume it's functional, and then be like, you know what? I'm going to do what they're doing. Or I like the way this looks and I like how people are reacting to what it is that they're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate what they're doing. And it's really also easy to look at beautiful content and become inspired. Or even look at the way someone functions or carries themselves in content and be like, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go do that, but I'm going to do it in my own lane, or I'm going to do it in my own way. And that's good. But I feel like the thing that made content really hard for me was comparing my execution to someone else's execution, not having put into it like a ton of thought or a ton of intention. And I'm going to explain like what I mean by that. So when I'm talking about like, oh, I'm just going to do what they're doing. So I might be thinking if they have a podcast and they're in a studio, maybe I need to be in a studio too. Like maybe I need professional mics. Maybe I need a professional mixer or a podcast producer or whatever the case is. When in reality, like that's not really true. I could be in a room, an office, and just kind of talking about what I intended to share, making sure that the quality is solid, and kind of just moving on and walking away feeling like my satisfaction is not in whether it looks like yours, but whether or not it allows me to share the value that I've always wanted to share with my audience. And so I guess what I'm saying is it's really easy to just take all of the feedback that someone gives you and just start applying it and trying to apply all the rules at once. But instead, what if we started to think about content in a different way, prioritizing different parts of it? And I have like a few parts that I wanted to like break down that I'm like, what if we made this change? How much easier would it be for you to feel like, yo, I could be creative in content and I can show up consistently? And so the very first thing that I feel like made content creation easier for me, and that even when I'm working with clients, that makes content creation simpler for them, is choosing their medium. And so when I say choosing your medium, I know it's like when I first got started or when I was first trying to figure out how to make my brand kind of like pop online, I was like, yo, like, where are people? I'm going to go where the people are and I'm going to chill there. And so I would try to choose mediums that I knew were like pretty well saturated. Users were like very much engaged or whatever the case was. And I was choosing mediums I didn't really want to be on. I was choosing mediums like that I didn't really care to understand, that I didn't also feel like helped me communicate my point. The reason why I was like, I want to do a podcast just because I feel like I could communicate something pretty well. But I want to have some sort of kind of like visual aspect of it that could easily like go on a platform like YouTube or possibly like play out well on something like IGTV, is because I know that I communicate my clearest when I have me a solid visual aid, you feel me? when I know that like I have something I could refer to that doesn't require that I like look down and feel awkward or talking to the table. Like, I know that those are things that make me feel more comfortable. I know that like it's a lot easier for me to flow. And it's a lot easier for me to kind of like follow like a thought off to the side to make a point and then come back to where I came from to kind of like have some structure to the conversation. Like, I just know that that's easier for me. And I know that in those moments, people are getting my best. So if that's the case, I need to figure out, without the bells and whistles, how can I do that? How can I do that and just prioritize like giving the value the best that I can versus doing or trying to duplicate what I've seen in some bootleg version. Like, I don't have to do that. And so in choosing my medium, I'm choosing a medium that lets me communicate the fullness of what I want to feel, what I want my audience to feel, and how I intend for them to experience this value or this impact. I would like for this to be something somebody's like, yo, I got to go back to that episode and I got to listen to it maybe again. Maybe the first time I listened to it, I was on the go. And I want to take notes next time. Or I want to share this with my friend, but like the way she put it on the screen. And then like, I really want people to be able to come back and refer to it, which is why I let it be here in this sort of kind of like semi like class like format for you to be able to consume it in a way that works well for you. What if it's not just the visual aid, or what if it's not just my voice, but the combination of how I put it together that makes it so much easier for you to grasp, because maybe you're not an auditory learner. Maybe you hear well, but when it comes to truly understanding, it takes another pass at it. And so I feel like these things help me choose what medium I wanted to focus on. If I was in a different industry, I probably would have chosen a different medium, because if I had a product, I probably want to talk about it differently. There probably would be more that I want to show you, but because what I'm talking about oftentimes has a lot to do with like what's going on in you, or what's going on in your mind, I want to then be able to have an emphasis on like the thought, the concept, the feeling, the experience instead. And so these are just things that you want to consider. What am I offering, and how am I putting my offering in the best light in this moment? I am kind of giving you an idea as to how I think. And I'm also giving you an idea as to how I share information with the goal for you to understand, because you see that like we're just chilling here right now, but like I'm not getting off the point until I feel like, Zaniyyah, you have exhausted this. You can move to the next point. But like the goal is not to hear myself. The goal is for me to be like, yo, this is as clear as you can get it. So if someone listening still doesn't get it at this point, it might take more or a different kind of conversation to really break through on like what this topic or what this area is talking about. And I kind of also wanted you to have an idea, like product or service, whatever the situation is, choosing your medium should kind of like highlight your interest, like your interest in creating a specific kind of content, but it should also highlight like your gift. If your gift is like showing up well in a particular way, you should be able to do that with the content medium that you chose, even if it means like remixing it in a way that you possibly have not seen before. And sometimes it's kind of taking your comfort zone and kind of just like sitting you right there, right on the outside, because you know, like, if I really want to get this thing done, this is how I need to go ahead and show up. But maybe I need to take baby steps to get there. If I need to go live, then maybe I need to do this. But to make it a little bit more comfortable, these are the adjustments or amendments I'm going to go ahead and be willing to make. Let me go ahead and I'm going to plug in I'm going to pause. Okay, cool. So let me just go ahead and hide the menu. Perfect. And so that is choosing your medium. Just trying to figure out what would allow me to communicate as clearly as possible and as simply as possible. One thing that I always ask my clients when we're trying to go ahead and put together a content strategy or a content plan for them, and I'm like, hey, so like, you know, what content, what medium will allow you to really kind of like show off your service or show off your product really well? And what they tell me is the right answer. So they tell me what they see people in their industry doing. And that's usually a good indication of like what makes sense. But sometimes they'll choose the medium that they actually are the most afraid of, the medium they consider to be the most daunting, the medium they're the most slow to actually produce, which means the idea of creating that content becomes heavier and heavier and heavier and a little bit more overwhelming. And what I end up saying to them, even though there sometimes is like this thing that is the right answer or the most typical answer or the most normal answer, and it probably would fit really well with their business, but it wouldn't necessarily always help them do the work they're supposed to do in their content creation process, because something in their mind is still telling them that this is actually scary. Like something in their mind is telling them that this isn't necessarily possible for them. And so sometimes I might advocate that they do something that's a little bit closer to the chest so that we could work our way towards a medium that they would be willing to do a little bit more consistently. So let's just say you have a person and they have products and they're kind of just like giving you pretty basic or pretty average like photos, like on a countertop, like kind of like not aesthetic. And they're trying to like market their product or whatever the case is. And possibly the physical use of their product or like showing the texture of the product on skin, if it's like a skin-based product or like a health or a beauty product, possibly like putting it on themselves or having someone put it on or something like that. Like little things might be able to really help them take things to the next level. Maybe instead of doing an entire YouTube video about what it is, maybe they should probably do a few reels at a time so that it's kind of like 15 seconds, 30 seconds of just like video content. If video content is something that they feel like is dangerous in their mind. And so once they start to take like those barriers down, they start to find out content creation can be fun, it can be creative. But what they'll start to do in thinking about this video content is they're going to get to a point where it becomes so fluid that they're going to be like, yo, look, I want to have a conversation now. I want to start to take things to the next level. They don't know this about the product. They would never know this if I didn't say it. So now I need to say something. I need to go from a 30-second video or a 15-second video or a 1 minute TikTok. And I need 3 minutes. And then you start to make goals like, if I could make a 3-minute video where I'm saying a little bit more once a week. Now, what we've done is we've started to tear apart like the phobia of showing up on a platform or the fear of like what's required for content creation in that space. And what we've done is we've made content creation a little bit more attainable, because what we've done is we've started to not just go and say what needs to get done so I can be a good marketer in my industry, point blank period, but what will allow me to communicate my value as simply as possible. The biggest difference in that moment is not the work that it takes. to go ahead and make the video. The work is the same. The biggest difference is there's a determination you'll have if that's your challenge. There's a determination you'll have the moment you realize you can't say what you want to say to your audience. And now you're like, well, I have to do the 3-minute video now, because how else will they know? How else will they understand the product? And so now, because you're more concerned about them understanding the product itself versus you kind of just showing up as a good marketer on YouTube, you're going to come with more intensive value and a greater focus when you show up on that platform. And so these are the kind of things that don't just allow you to show up successfully, like whatever that means to you, but it's the kind of thing that I feel like I don't hear a ton of stuff about. And this is what I mean by that. A lot of marketing requires for you to have done some work on yourself. And this is the thing that I feel like I focus on a lot more in my business, because there are a lot of people who can give you really solid like marketing strategy. And there are a lot of people who are willing to give you really good feedback and who are willing to give you really good systems. But a lot of the times, the human component about marketing is you'll only go as far as you are developed. And so sometimes you just need to develop. And the way that I do marketing for serious brands, even in those beginning stages, I'm able to say, listen, if you need to grow into this, grow into it, but don't let your need for growth stop the work that must be done. You must sell, you must serve. And so we're going to do that. But if we have to grow your way into the kind of impact you want to have, then let's go ahead and do that and take it seriously. And that's kind of like the standard. That's the expectation. And the reason I say that is because I have been in rooms and in conversations with people who are very inspiring, very encouraging, very, very, very educational. But in those moments when I was receiving exceptional advice, I actually wasn't fit in that season to apply it, because there was so much work I had to do in me that really made it so that I just wasn't ready to execute on that level or up into that place. And that doesn't necessarily mean that like all people who help you with your business are also required to help you with like your mental or your emotional health, like, because that's what some coaches are for. That's what some therapists are for. But sometimes you still have to do the work anyway. Like sometimes you have to grow while your business moves, and you don't have the privilege of waiting until you're finished to start functioning in your business. Like that's just not how it works if you need to eat. And so what I'm saying is choosing something as simple as choosing your medium could be super, super, super like basic. Like, yo, like I pick podcasting, like what's up? Or it could be I pick podcasting because I'm actually not super comfortable with being visible. And so being on YouTube makes me nervous because I want people to hear me and I want people to be served by me, but I don't really want to be seen. You see what I mean? And that's actually where I was coming from. Like, I wanted to serve people so bad from the shadows. Y'all don't even know how hard I tried to serve people from the back. And it was such a struggle because people couldn't reach me. They couldn't find me. And me hiding that way meant that I couldn't give them my best, because I was afraid of like my voice and my position or my perspective or whatever the case was. But that's why I'm pretty empathetic towards people who have that challenge. But that's also why I like to put a fire under those butts, because you can't stay there. And that discomfort it can't be an excuse. It has to be the reason you put more pressure on the gas. But it's nice sometimes to be able to have that consideration ever so slightly as you continue to work through what marketing or what serving and selling looks like for you and your business. Hopefully, I can make it through these next 4 a little bit faster, because I beat the horse on that choose your medium. Okay. So the next one is choosing your niche. And so by choosing your niche, I mean selecting which niche your brand could afford to have a real personality with. And not just a brand persona. Your personality isn't like too big or too small when you're talking to the right person. And so this is what I mean by that. For somebody, like, I'm too chatty. Like, for somebody, I talk a lot about psychology, emotions, personal development, feelings, and stuff like that. And they're like, bro, like, get to this strategy. Like, if it ain't all strategy, it ain't for me. Then it probably isn't for you, right? So the person who is actually looking for some marriage between personal development and marketing is the person who's really going to enjoy this space here. They also might be able to appreciate a little bit of the small nuances with like my language. And so, for example, I grew up in North New Jersey. I now live downtown North New Jersey. And so being from North means like I am or have always been hood adjacent. I always say hood adjacent because I went to school in North. My family is in North. I have always had like all my after school activities in the hood of North, but I haven't until I got married, I wasn't living in North. I just had my entire family in North, but my parents decided, yo, I want her to grow up in a different environment where she learns different morals, different values, and she's surrounded by different people. So I actually grew up in a pretty like diverse environment in a town called Sayreville, and I commuted to North every single day. And when I got to North, I went to charter schools and Black-owned private schools. And so what this is, who I am, is kind of like this person who gets like grammar, diction, language, all the things, but also who was just like, that's still North though. Like the colloquialisms and things of that nature aren't things you turn on. They're things that have to be turned off in order for me to feel like I have to function or code switch in certain environments. And for somebody, they're like, yo, like, why is she talking like that? Why does it sound like she could go full corporate on me right now, but at the same time, her pace or her tone, like it's still like I hate the word urban, but whatever. It's still that. And so your niche doesn't find your personality to be a problem. And there's nothing wrong with being your authentic self so that the right person can be attracted to who you really are. It was always so hard for me at first because I was like, I'm coming from a corporate space, but I'm also from North. And I was the kid in class who, because they really did like rock with the grammar, or rock with the diction, and because I did public speaking and things, I remember somebody called me an Oreo because we in the same school, in the same class, but I used the grammar details in my like day-to-day conversation because we learned it. And I was just like, bro, we go to the same school, like we're literally in the same place right now, and you're trying to judge how I'm functioning in this space. But it's just like in the right environment, you're exactly what you're, the right sound, the right temperament, the right tone, like the right diction, the right speed. And so you just want to master like your pace and your presence so that when you show up, you aren't leaving stuff in the back because people aren't getting the full weight or the full measure of who you are. If you're trying to show up well for everybody, you won't show up well for anybody. And so that's just choosing your niche. And that too can also be seen as like psychology, because you have to have like a certain kind of peace or a certain kind of presence about how you show up in the world in order to be like, I'm comfortable with my voice, my face, and my presence. I'm comfortable taking up space here. The very first time I tried to like put together some podcasts I joined, I was like, yo, like this is what I'm going to do. But I realized I was so uncomfortable. I was using my work voice. Like I was like, it was trash. Like I felt like I had to turn slang on. Like it was very confusing for me. I was just like, why am I showing up like this in this space? I'm in this room by myself. I'm not performing. And even like if somebody would like walk past the room I'm podcasting in, I would kind of get a little bit insecure. Like I would be like, yo, I don't want nobody to hear me. Like maybe I should speak lower. But the way you are willing to kind of like show up in a space dictates how you're served there. If you are willing to compromise your serving by whispering, maybe you aren't ready to serve yet. And that happened for me. Like, I was just like, yo, like, if I'm not comfortable with showing up fully in this space, I'm not ready for that piece of content. I'm not ready for that medium just yet. So what I probably need to do is go in the back and grow. What I probably need to do is to actually go schedule a couple of sessions with my therapist, because I'm having trouble feeling comfortable taking up space in a quiet room, hearing my own voice give something that I know could be of value, something that somebody somewhere is actually praying, asking God for, from somebody like me, who looks like me, talks like me, and has a story like my story. And so that's my piece on choosing your niche. And so the next piece that could really help make content creation feel like it's a little bit more fun, like it's a little bit more simple, a little bit more straightforward, is telling your story for real this time. When I tell my story, I try to, like, now, because it hasn't always been this way, I try to tell it in a way that's like, this is what I did. This is how I responded to what I did. This is what went right about that. This is what went wrong about that. This is what I would do now. If you're struggling with X, maybe you should try Y. That's totally different from saying, if you want to be successful, then you need to. That's not my presence. That's not how I come off. That's not necessarily how I want to communicate. And I'm taking into consideration not just what I want to say, but how I'm desiring for you to receive it. I had like a little bit of a softer, kind of calmer presence about me than someone who is giving you explicit directives that you can go ahead and execute. Now, does that mean I can't give instructions? No. Does it mean I can't give you feedback or give you step-by-steps that you can execute? Absolutely not. But what that does mean is I'm thinking about the fact that my audience, they aren't just doing work. They're going through a process. And so because I honor and I respect their process, because I too have gone through a process of personal development, a process of increasing in confidence, a process of just growing and learning as a person, I can respect people not being there yet. And so if I'm trying to help people become more comfortable with content creation, more comfortable with their voice, more comfortable with showing up well, then I'm going to give you advice in a way that is the least likely to offend people who possibly aren't yet healed enough to take harder, more explicit instructions. Now, some people, I was in a season of my life where it was just like, I needed to grow up quite a bit. And so I needed to be listening to people whose content was like very much like, stop playing around, get up and go do your work type junk. But there were also seasons in my life where I needed a softer word. I needed a word that cared for my development and not just my activity. And so sometimes you're going to get a little bit both in this space, but it all depends on what you intend for that person to do with what it is you're sharing and how you think they might be feeling in moments like these. So tell your story for real. And so instead of giving instructions, tell the story, tell your story so it could feel a little bit more genuine. So if you struggle with the authority of it all, the expertise of it all, just give your story and just be honest. I started at X, or I started at A. I ended up at B. B was trash. So I decided to go from B to C, and B was a lot better. And this is how you can get to B if you're struggling with A. Now, I want to hear your story. I want to know a little bit more about you. 9 times out of 10, you left out some things, but so I need to now consume all your content just to get a better picture of who you are and what it is you do. Like, are you feeling me? Like, do you understand like what's going on and where I'm coming from right now? Yeah. And I also feel like it lets you come off more authentically. In a world where more people than ever are considering themselves or transitioning into a space where they're desiring to feel like experts, it's really nice to get advice from a human. It's really nice to get advice from someone who just has experience. And so I think that that's cool. That also could be a me thing. Like, who's finished? Not everybody, not me, not nobody who's still alive. And so I might be somebody who's just like possibly, I'm trying to get this an aggressive and overused word, but I might be feeling a way because maybe for me, the word expert, I just feel like it's very vague. The standards are very loose, very, very touch and go. And so I could harp over whether or not I'm an expert, or I could just give you the feedback that has come with my experience so far. I still showed up. I still showed up and gave you my standard of excellence today, like the fullness of who I am and how I can serve you today. So what that did was it made it so that there's less intimidation about showing up. And I guess that's just the kind of person I am, and like where I'm at right now too. Okay, where we at? I like that. You understand? Okay, create your own spaces. So don't be afraid to take your core audience to more intimate spaces or platforms to communicate with them well. So like that's like blogs, that's like podcasts, newsletters. Where else? What's other cool spaces? Like Clubhouse is a cool space. YouTube is another cool space. Like we find people sometimes on like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. And sometimes we're afraid that I have been afraid. Let me chill. Sometimes I have been afraid to take people from public spaces to more intimate spaces, because when you transition people from one space to another, you see the numbers change. If you have like a core group of like maybe over 1,000 and you're looking to bring them to someplace like your newsletter, not all 1,000 is not coming, period. Like they're not all going to come. But what you're going to see is the people who want what it is that you offer and value. Those are going to be the people who are like, yeah, I'm coming. Matter of fact, I've been waiting for you to give me a reason to come off this platform where I got to work hard to see you. And so you want to create those intimate spaces so people can have a really cool and a really unique experience with your brand. And so I actually struggled with this a bit because I didn't want to see the numbers change. But what you do want to do, and something I learned to lean into was, okay, so if you really want to serve people the way you're saying that you do, you need to be concerned with concentrating your service. So if you find yourself trying to kind of pander to like the weird diversity of your audience, where it's like some friends, some family, some customers, bringing your customers or your audience into a space where they want to explicitly not just see about you, your family, your kid, and then like check on your business every once in a while, but actually hear explicitly about how you help people, how you serve people, then bring them to a space where you won't feel strange or awkward about talking about just that. And so that's what I mean by creating your own space, by creating a space that you consider to be safe to serve, and people can easily be able to go ahead and receive or experience that. And then lastly, don't follow all the rules. The reason I say that is because like I went to a charter school, and it was a college preparatory charter school, and it was also in downtown Newark. It's actually so funny. Like it's actually like not too far. It's like a block or two away from where I live now. And I was so concerned with following all the rules. My school was strict. There were a lot of rules. And so I kind of have always been in environments where following the rules was the currency for success. And so in a world now where that's not the standard anymore, it makes more sense to kind of instead go ahead and break a few rules to blaze a fresh trail. If you follow every rule I give you, it's a possibility you'll look a lot like me. If you follow every rule I give you, it's a possibility you'll look a lot like me. And you might not do everything that's necessary for your audience. It's possible. It's possible. And so in being kind of a rule breaker in the sense where you start to follow your gut and lean into creativity and what you actually care to do, you're going to start doing things that consider your audience, that consider your gifts and your talents. I could be telling you to pull up on one of these very, very visual platforms, and you're like, Zaniyyah, I don't do visuals because I don't care about visuals. Well, you might need a different focus or a different priority, or I might be telling you, hey, like, make that more attractive. And maybe your audience is like, I need the meat of the information. I don't got time for you to edit this and make this look pretty. And so you want to follow some sort of system or structure, but at the same time, you want to listen to your gut and towards your intuition, and also lean in towards your willingness to execute and your creativity. If you feel curious or creative about certain things, you might want to lean into that because you care about those things. It's a lot harder to turn on caring. Like, if you don't care, my instructions probably won't execute well. But if you're like, actually, I've been meaning to do that, I've been wondering about that, I've been wanting to take action in this area, executing doesn't feel as hefty. And there's also going to be like less of a block or a barrier for going ahead and getting that done. And so just this note, if you don't follow your gut, you'll be more focused on doing what you think is right instead of what works. And sometimes, because you're engaging with your audience on a regular basis, as you continue to grow, you're going to see like, hey, I think I do think, I know what my audience wants or know what my audience is thinking about. But when you don't have a professional saying, I'm looking at your data and this is what it says and this is what it is you should do. You want to take all of the ebooks and all of the courses, and you want to start to approximate some of that information instead of going line by line, detail by detail. But when you have someone looking explicitly at your brand, you could then do a little bit more leaning or depending on like that specific conversation because it's a custom prescription. And so now, I just shared things that have helped me to become less obsessive about how I'm showing up in the world and instead become more concerned with serving as well as I can. I think that once upon a time, like if I wanted to really like show up well, even here, I would have been like, hey, like, yo, should I put makeup on right now? Like, should I go not put a blouse on? Should I go buy a blouse to do this video right now? Or like, maybe I should do an eyebrow. Like, like maybe I should do my hair. Okay, next week I'm gonna do, like, it would have been a spectacle for me to be in a circle and you really to not even be able to see me very well in that way. And so I used to overthink and obsess about like, the way that I wanted to show up or the way that I want to present myself. And I used to think that showing up excellently meant showing up, done up. And for me to show up well and to show up more consistently, I had to kind of become more comfortable with showing up with value and showing up, giving my all. I can tell you right now that I don't even know how long this joint is because I didn't even want to get wrapped up in like how much time. I didn't want to feel like I had to rush. I didn't want to feel like, I didn't have the space to like make content on my platform. Like I didn't want those problems. So I don't got no timers up. I can't see a single clock, like none of those things. I just know that I wanted to give you the things that I felt like helped me grow through the process of serving people I've been assigned to. And so if I'm being honest about that, and I'm being honest about like, I'm not just saying, go do this and win. I'm saying, like, this is a process. It's a process. There's a lot of things you learn. There's a lot of things you grow through, and just go through the process. If that's my story and that's what I'm saying, then I know that I just showed up well. I gave you everything I had. And so everything that I've shared with you thus far did a few things for me as far as not just making content easy, but making it a little bit more simple. It improved my confidence. When I had become more comfortable taking up space, more comfortable with thinking about my audience and thinking about how I'm a great fit for who they are, I wasn't concerned about whether you thought I was cute. Like I'm content in of myself, and I know that I'm assigned to share with you That's all that matters. And so now I'm able to stop looking outwardly for all my insight about what to do or how to do it. And I'm able to start just saying, hey, Zaniyyah, did you serve? Did you serve? Did you give people what they need to not market perfectly, but to take action, because some people are paralyzed by perfection. Some people are really nervous about not showing up well or being judged. And even if you are judging me right now, I have no idea. I don't know. I have a piece about what it is God told me to do. And that's all I have. So it's just like, if that's the case, what should be stopping you right now? What's in your way right now? Another thing that using these tools allowed me to do, in addition to start marketing more consistently and having a lot more ideas about how I can show up in my content, is it upgraded my joy. I have a lot of joy about this piece of content and about getting to the place where I'm really comfortable here with you and having this conversation with you. And I'm not putting on anything. Like this is me for real. And being able to show up that way has upgraded my joy. And when you are able to kind of apply those tips or those ideas to the realness of who you are and what it is you really have to offer, you don't really feel like you have to perform as much. You just feel like you have to really show up in excellence or like show up in diligence and kind of like doing the work. And it will upgrade your joy. It will make you more happy and more excited to show up well in your business because of the piece you have about doing the work. And working to serve instead of working to meet the standard of someone else's carbon copy of content will make you feel good. It will make you feel full. And it's a really positive experience. And I'm saying that to somebody if they have an assignment and they're really nervous about kind of just like showing up well. And so another thing that this entire like process that all of these tools and all of these tips and tricks have been able to successfully help me through is make me feel like I fit. So when you have a niche, you're able to say, I'm for a certain people in a certain place, in a certain environment. In that moment, you are a perfect fit for who somebody is or where they are and what it is that they need. For somebody, they don't need a 13-step process for email sequences. For somebody, they don't need me to give them like this aggressive template for long captions that really resonate and things like that. They need to figure out what they feel for themselves, figure out how they intend to serve for themselves, and then kind of just start showing up. And so these are the things that help not just you create content, but help you create authentic content so that the next time you show up, you're not looking for the mask you used last time because you used your face, you used your heart to kind of just show up well in your content. And lastly, to become the kind of person whose value is only highlighted by personality within your content, you have to be willing to just show up well. You have to be willing to show up with the value and the emphasis being on how you intended to serve. Not just the aesthetics, because I like a good aesthetic, but that's not what it's all about. I've had good aesthetics on things and it crickets, like nothing happened. And it wasn't until I started putting my weight on my marketing as far as like really functioning like I believe in what it was I was doing and really showing up well. Because some people market, but they really don't want people to see it. That's another conversation for another day. Like they don't really desire for people to experience what it is they've created. And so they did it to say that they did it, but they actually put themselves in a position where it couldn't be successful because they refused to put their weight on what it is they were marketing. And so to become the kind of person who is of value in your content, you just want to leverage your personality. It's a tool you have. And a lot of people don't realize that like who you are and how you talk, like how you show up in the world, whether or not you wear lashes, whether or not you do eyebrows, whether you do lipsticks or lip gloss, like it doesn't even matter. There's someone who is like, yep, me too. Yes, that's me. Girl, same. There's somebody who is saying all of those things, but knowing how to use or bring your personality into your content is really what makes you bring creativity back to the conversation when it comes to content. And so we serve first. We bring value to the table so that your audience has a need that you can serve or that they're interested in. And then we build that relationship to understand more about their needs and their goals and their desires. This is when you can now start to ask questions. This is where you can start to test different areas of content to see, hey, does this kind of idea solve their problem? Do I understand what it is they're feeling about this? Do I understand what this problem means to them? Do I understand how seriously they take this, their goals, their priorities? Because it starts to dictate how you continue to position the rest of the offers you provide. And then you upserve by selling. And I like the idea of upserve because the first time you service in your content, you start showing that, hey, like, I understand what you feel. I understand what's happening. And then you start to show them that you have some solutions to cater to whatever it is that's happening. But in order to sell someone on something, you have to upgrade the degree or the intensity of service or the intensity of impact towards solving that problem within your offer. And so you upserve, and then selling is a lot simpler. The thing is, you have to communicate the upgrade in service in order for the thing you're selling to seem like it's worthwhile. And so after someone has maxed out your serving in your content or in your hot, lower cost goods, they're able to do what? Purchase the next level, purchase the next experience. And so that is that. And so at this point, if you are looking to kind of just like grow and refine your brand, grow and show up well in your marketing, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and grab my beginner brand language blueprint. So what it is it's starting to give you the language for how to have a conversation in your content about who it is you're serving, why you're serving them, and what it is you can do for them. I noticed that like sometimes I would see people who have really amazing things that they offer, but they don't really know how to have a conversation about what it is they do or how they're helping people. And so really, really, really having a firm or a clear idea as to how to talk about it allows you to have conversation. It allows you to go live. It allows you to write captions. It allows you to write emails. It allows you to do so much. But if you don't have the language for what it is you do, and you say, well, I just sell shampoo, or I just do marketing, or I just create content, or I just trade, or I just invest, or whatever the case is, like if you don't have the language for that thing, you won't know what to highlight when you're having a conversation with your target audience, and they really want what you have, but they want it because of who you are and what you focus on. And so even if you consider your market to be saturated, there is a way to talk about what you do. There's a way to talk about what you offer in a way that makes you sound rare. And so you want to take advantage of what that is using the free brand language blueprint. So you can start to be able to have a conversation in all mediums of content or in all forms of conversation to kind of like bring that spark back to every single thing that you're doing as it pertains to content as you serve and as you sell. I invite you to go ahead and just visit basecreatives.com. Pick it up, like literally the first like little bar right underneath the header where it's like, hey, like grab this. Like you can just plug it in and it'll automatically send it over to you. You get the download, little word of encouragement to go ahead and get to work. If you want more content like this, shorter bits and pieces of content like this, go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Base Creatives, where I'm kind of just like showing up over there every single day, giving y'all the real, giving y'all the sauce. Like my whole thing is, how am I growing through the process of growing this business? Like it's so crazy because it's just like, I tried to separate those joints, but I couldn't even have a conversation about marketing without talking about how I had to grow through a lot of this stuff, how I had to do a lot of learning and a lot of unlearning in order to really show up for my brand and really show up for my audience and to serve my customers consistently. And so I have a lot of those conversations and that content over there. So that's just me over there living it up. And if you really, really like what you're doing and what we're starting to do over here at Base Creatives on YouTube, yo, like subscribe, like this video, like why not? We're just having fun. Like we're just doing us in marketing, showing up well for our brands and our businesses. Oh, I should have put it up here, but I did not. But on all the places where our podcast is, you can go ahead and also subscribe and rate Base Creative Podcast, where we're kind of just like having this similar conversation, but giving you a means or a medium to kind of just really consume it on the go, and just kind of be able to have fun consuming your content and doing what you do best, which is taking the content and using it the way that you need to. So you can go ahead and enjoy us on the various platforms where podcasters stream. And this was fun. 10 out of 10 would definitely recommend. As we get to know each other a little bit more, you'll see that like me saying that I would recommend or I would do it again means that y'all are seeing more content like this. If not, I would also say just that. Like, this was cute. I'll see y'all where I normally see y'all. But this was really fun. Until next time. Bye.